Assalamu alaikum, brother.
Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Welcome to another Quran study. Today we'll be reading from Surah 6, verse 135. Let's all seek refuge in God from Satan the rejected. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Say, O my people, do your best, and so will I. You will surely find out who the ultimate victors are. Certainly the wicked will never succeed. Abusing God's provisions. They even set aside a share of God's provisions of crops and livestock, saying, "This share belongs to God," according to their claims, and this share belongs to our idols. However, what was set aside for their idols never reached God, while the share they set aside for God invariably went to their idols. Miserable indeed is their judgment. Thus were the idol worshippers duped by their idols to the extent of killing their own children. In fact, their idols inflict great pain upon them and confuse their religion for them. Had God willed, they would have not done it. You shall disregard them and their fabrications. Looking back at verse 135, it's one of the Quls, if I'm saying that correctly, Qul. It's one of the Quls in the Quran that we can tell people. The Quran has the best information and way to respond to people, or invite people. Really, in every situation, you're inviting them to the path of your Lord, and if they choose to go astray, that's just that's up to them, and it's that's just too bad for them. But um, this also assures us that God is letting us know as well that God, His angels, and the believers are going to be the ultimate victors. And also reminding us that the wicked will never succeed. So, regardless of their schemes or regardless how things could appear, we remember that it's just an illusion. This realm, this realm and dimension we're in, and they're not going to succeed despite their great numbers or despite their elusive schemes and other things they do to try to put out God's light. And we also see that these people, when they have crops, instead of devoting them to God alone, um, they're also setting aside crops, for their idols. And it's really bad, even to do this, is bad, to have crops which God grew for these people and give them to their idols, but they also go as far as not even being consistent with their initial claim, about what they're saying their share belongs to God, and then this other share belongs to their idols. So it's like twice as bad, because what they set aside for their idols or what they set aside for God never even reached God, and instead it went to their idols. So it's really, it's their judgment is gonna cause them misery. And we have a footnote for 137 we can read. A perfect example of a perfect example is the internationally infamous incident of the execution of Saudi Arabian princess in 1978 for alleged adultery. God's law institutes whipping, not execution, as punishment for adultery. And that's in Surah 24, verses 1 to 2. While the idolatrous laws stipulate execution, as pointed out in 42:21, the traditionalists follow a religion that is not authorized by God. So idol worship and these things that these people follow causes confusion in their religion, and not just confusion, but it inflicts great pain upon them. So this is what happens when you disobey and you transgress God's law that is set up for our own good and own happiness, right? And when you engage in idol worship of any kind, it's going to bring misery and pain upon you. So and it's because they chose this. So they're given the message. They're given the same message as me and you and everybody listening. Any submitters, all submitters out there, and but they thus, chose to go astray. Because we all have free will, right? So we can choose to listen to God and obey the messenger, which he tells us to listen to God and adhere to the uh, Quran and this final testament, this scripture. And if you choose to disobey, you're going to bring pain upon yourself. So, and we're given, this is just one of the examples, but to the extent if they kill their own children, I mean, how sad is that? So it's and they think they're doing things right too. So I mean, these, like, as we're told, these are the worst losers because they think that they're on the right path, but that's their companions making them think that way, right? They're devils. Religious innovations condemned. They said these are livestock and crops that are prohibited. No one shall eat them except whomever we permit, so they claimed. They also prohibited the riding of certain livestock, even the livestock they ate. They never pronounced God's name as they sacrificed them. Such are the innovations attributed to him. So these are more religious innovations that people have committed and that are talked about in the Quran. And we still see stuff like this happening today. I mean, even within submission, we see people inventing things that are not in the Quran, or taking verses out of context to extricate a certain meaning, to confuse the people. And basically their opinions have become their gods, and they clearly don't have any reverence or care or carefulness for what they're doing or what they're saying, which is why, one of the reasons these people go astray. Um, but, they, I mean, they even go as far as to prohibit certain livestock to ride, I mean, these people, these are the worst types of people because they're attributing this to God as well. And we know who is more evil than one who attributes lies to God. So, he will surely requite them for their innovations. They also said, what is in the bellies of these livestock is reserved exclusively for the males among us and prohibited for our wives. But if it was a stillbirth, they permitted their wives to share therein. He will certainly requite them for their innovations. He is most wise, omniscient. Losers indeed are those who killed their children foolishly due to their lack of knowledge and prohibited what God has provided for them, and followed innovations attributed to God. They have gone astray, they are not guided. So these innovations that, people are doing, they're not going to be able to get away with it, right? So, um, it would behoove people to, really not, examine themselves if they are following innovations, but, to be careful in this regard, because something, uh, something as simple as this is not so simple in the way I'm trying to convey here, but it's something that can send you to hell. And I think, when people look at it in this light and understand and believe it in this light of, in this context, that could, that would make them think twice, or it would help them see things, because a lot of people, and when I say a lot of people who claim to believe take these things very lightly. As we're, we've been given examples within submission, within Muslim communities, within other communities, Christianity and stuff. But this is not just something you should brush over, even if it's a seemingly small, innovation. And I say small because it's nothing is small in the context of how everything is judged and weighted. And so these things are very, very important. Um, Even in the beginning of Surah 6, we see one of the reasons. I think the messenger was talking about, but there's a verse that why these people go astray and end up in hell. I was listening to it the other day. It's because they prohibited things that God did not prohibit. So this is a very important topic. And so, as we've seen earlier, losers indeed are those who kill their children foolishly due to the lack of knowledge and prohibited what God has provided for them, and followed innovations attributed to God. They've gone astray and they're not guided. So things that God provides for us, and things that God, our Creator, has made lawful for us to consume, um, things we can consume, and other things we can do, like such as we can ride on the backs of, any livestock, horses, etc., bulls, which cows. So, people who prohibit these things are have gone far astray. And, where God is going to requite these people, not just the people who come up with these innovations, but also the people who follow them, because, they're basically setting up another God beside God. The person or individual who's ever fabricating these things. And also, I guess you can you can see the discrimination here against women. About, what's in the bellies of the livestock is reserved exclusively for the males. But if it was a stillbirth, so it also, exposes their, these people's biases at the time, and not just at the time of the Quran and prior, but also, we still see that in certain um, countries today, namely the Middle East. They do stuff like this. They're still doing it. 141, Zakah must be given on the day of harvest. He is the one who established gardens, trellised and untrellised, and palm trees and crops with different tastes, and olives and pomegranates. Fruits that are similar yet dissimilar. Eat from their fruits and give the due alms on the day of harvest, and do not waste anything. He does not love the wasters. So this one has a footnote. Zakat charity is so important. The most merciful has restricted his mercy to those who give it. We're seeing that in Surah 7, the Purgatory, verse 156. Yet the corrupted Muslims have lost this most important commandment. They give zakah only once a year. We see here that zakah must be given away on the day we receive income. The proportion that came to us through Abraham is 2.5% of our net income. SubhanAllah, so thank God for this information and these clarifications, because, if we think about it, if we didn't have this, or we were following, the majority or the incorrect way, we're giving our zakah, and there's no growth, there's nothing we're actually doing that's positive for our soul, because if you're not in the same way, we don't make, the people who mention idols in their contact prayers or follow innovations and or pray at the incorrect times, etc. Such as we've seen the innovation with the afternoon prayer recently within a group of people. They're nullifying their prayers, and they're not, whether they realize it or not. And this is also talked about, and And one of the later surahs in the Quran about how the one woe to the one who is heedless of his contact prayers. The messenger was very clear about this. You're not going to reap any of the benefits, and if anything, you could potentially go into negative if you're mentioning other names and stuff, or even when you give charity or stuff. People might mention, or Christians could say things like, "Oh, they're giving this for the sake of X, Y, Z," whatever saint or prophet. But so on the day when we receive income, we give our charity, and also, mashallah, we're reminded, to be appreciative here for all these different crops and trees, because we could have easily been created with, let's just say we had olives and pomegranates, or let's just say we had grapes or strawberries, but we didn't have olives and pomegranates, so, I mean, and, people could say, oh, we wouldn't have known the difference, but still, like, it's, yeah, but, I mean, it's, I think the better way to look at it is just to be grateful, and, I mean, now that we do know we're given these things, we actually do know the difference, so, if we, think, think, uh, think in this regard, we can visualize these things, and be eternally appreciative, now and forever, and just keep finding more things to be appreciative. There's so much every day we can be grateful for. I mean, just this book, the Quran, the miracle, the list goes on. The things around us, God resurrecting us at when we wake up. So, and there are also proofs in these things too. We're seeing that there are fruits that are similar yet dissimilar. So, I mean, if you look at these types of fruits, they have very strikingly similarities, but yet they're dissimilar because they taste different, they smell different, even their interior texture could be more crunchy and more soft. These are, I mean, this is amazing, and this was all created for, people and creatures, rebels who didn't make a firm stand with God, but God is the most merciful. So he provides for us in this life as well as for the disbelievers, but in the hereafter, those provisions aren't going to, be given, to the people who fail to nourish themselves and worship God, lead a righteous life. And also, too, this is something I think we should, personally speaking, we need to really examine ourselves and make sure we're not wasting anything. So even if we have to throw something out, for example, like I had some coffee I didn't finish, but for about 12 hours, the other day. And but I found out that you can fertilize plants. It's actually very nitrogen rich for a tree and fertilization. So, instead of just dumping it in the sink, I mean, ideally, you would pour the amount that you would finish, right? You don't be excessive in this extent, but things happen, or if you forget about it, or you didn't, drink it all, you didn't find that you needed it, and you didn't put it back in the fridge. I mean, this is just an example, but this is how we should think about these things, and not just, like, oh, you dump out the coffee in the sink. Well, instead of doing that, I did a little research, which took like maybe a few minutes, and then you can feed it to house plants. It's very 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 good. They absorb this stuff, and any bacteria or mold that has grown, which makes it unsafe to drink. The earth will even get rid of that. So it's perfect. It's very good for these plants, for trees, for any plant, house plant or outdoor plant. Um, so this is we should think about like recycling and reusing these things. Now, of course, like if something, if we have like some really moldy food or something we didn't see, or this is just an example, like we don't want to go feed that to a bird or something, because like even if the bird could, I mean, a lot of the bigger birds like crows, ravens, vultures, they can eat roadkill and carrion, dead animals, but at the same time, like things that are very unfit, we should just probably dispose of and not, not, it's just an example, but not give like a big pot of moldy rice to birds because it could make them sick, possibly. But that's, I guess if it's like in real bad condition. But anyway, moving on, verse 142, some livestock supply you with transportation as well as bedding materials. Eat from God's provisions to you and do not follow the steps of Satan. He is your most ardent enemy. MashaAllah, so these are more things to be grateful for. Transportation as well as bedding materials, things, that are very resourceful to us. And we're reminded, do not follow the steps of Satan. He's your most ardent enemy. So, I mean, just looking at the verses we've just been discussing, the steps of Satan here in this context, I mean, is idol worship, but I mean, uh, making up innovations and not just making them up, but following them too, and so we have to not do either of those. And he's your most ardent enemy, right? Every word is specifically every sentence, and all the wisdom is in here in the Quran, and God is letting us know, he's our most ardent enemy. So I mean, how would you treat an enemy, who is very cunning, elusive, and wanting to see not just your destruction but your eternal destruction? Would invites to the path of hell, while God invites to the path of forgiveness. So we have to not underestimate his tactics or any of that, and also not be arrogant. Like you see a lot of people from other religions, and not that I see this or I've seen this within submission, but I mean, it just reminds me of how people, humans, think they can go to battle with Satan and like fight Satan and all this, and like you see this with Christians, one-upping each other, trying to cast out multiple demons at a time, and calling on their idols. I mean, this isn't. I mean, this is probably that type of thinking is probably what got them to idolize and go astray in the first place, because they don't. They're committing one of the same mistakes. They in the Great Feud. They also we made. We didn't repent for our crime, but as is also explained by the messenger, we underestimated the power of Satan, in the context of his ways and abilities to influence people. And I hope I'm saying it right, but he talks about this, and it's ego that led to this, right? So we have to not we have to constantly seek refuge, and always remember we need to seek refuge in God, because without God's protection, we're easy we're easy prey, we're easy targets, so we have to have this correct type of mindset. And we don't fear uh the devil or Satan or any of his constituents or anyone but God, because we know fear is the part of the devil's tool, the way he uses to manipulate and control his constituents and make them, we can't make him but do anything, but he invites them to the path of straying and making the wrong decisions, um, so verse 143, innovated dietary prohibitions condemned. 8 kinds of livestock regarding the 2 kinds of sheep and the 2 kinds of goats say, is it The two males that he prohibited, or the two females, or the contents of the wombs of the two females? Tell me what you know if you are truthful. So these people that are doing and making these prohibitions didn't receive any guidance, or didn't receive any instructions from God, and they're fabricators, right? And so they're so that's why we have the rhetorical question here. 144, regarding the two kinds of camels and the two kinds of cattle, say, is it the two males that he prohibited, or the two females, or the contents of the wombs of the two females? Were you witnesses when God decreed such prohibitions for you? Who is more evil than those who invent lies and attribute them to God? They thus mislead the people without knowledge. God does not guide such evil people. Yeah, so like we were discussing earlier, they weren't witnesses to any of this. They didn't receive any guidance, despite, even if they claim, that would make them a false messenger in this sense. But it's a good question, that you can ask these people and expose them on this basis. And as we mentioned earlier, who is more evil than those who invent such lies and attribute them to God? So these people who come up with these innovations and prohibitions are the most evil people, and they're going to be in the lowest pit of hell if they don't reform and denounce and demobilize, if that's the correct term here, all their people and constituents that they have following them. That they thus mislead the people without knowledge, as the verse says. So they would have to, renounce what they're doing, and condemn it. And it would be better for these people, but maybe due to ego and arrogance, they're not willing to do that, and also they could be blocked, from doing this, from the guidance, And as we see at the end, God does not guide such evil people. So these are evil people who do this, who prohibit things God didn't prohibit, who lies, So, verse 145, the only dietary prohibitions say, I do not find in the revelations given to me any food that is prohibited for any eater except 1, carrion, 2, running blood, 3, the meat of pigs, for it is contaminated, and 4, the meat of animals, blasphemously dedicated to other than God. If one is forced to eat these without being deliberate or malicious, then your Lord is forgiver, most merciful. So these are the only dietary prohibitions. It's very, very straightforward and very simple. Notice we have the meat, the meat of pigs here. It didn't say the fat, it didn't say the skin, but not saying people have to eat that. They don't have to eat that if they don't want, if it's not their thing. But you can't prohibit it, because then you would be, you'd be breaking God's law and everything we've just been discussing. So the footnote reads, only 4 kinds of animal products are prohibited. Animals that die themselves, that's carrion. Running blood, not trapped within the meat. The meat of pigs and animals dedicated to other than the Creator. Verse 146 informs us that such prohibitions are very specific. God prohibits either the meat or the fat, or both, if he so wills. So, we have verses where the fat was prohibited, like on the Visera, I believe it is, for the Jews. So you can see the clear distinction here, that there's times where only the fat has been mentioned, right? And then only the meat. So, anybody with brain, would be able to clearly see that this book is fully detailed, and what it says is exactly what it says. There's no ambiguity here. There's no dilly-dallying around the truth, or maybe this and then, no, it says the meat and the fat. It's very, very straightforward, but it's really something, to see how many people miss this. And, we see millions of people that have the Quran, tens of millions. I don't know if I'd say hundreds of millions. I'm not sure about that number, maybe, but I could be wrong. But that have the Quran and don't, don't follow it. And especially, the meat of pigs is contaminated, as we've seen in another footnote about trichinosis, which is a deadly parasite. And, for people, who out there who think, I haven't heard this from anybody, but, I mean, people who enjoy eating swine, or think that they can cook it, and then it'll kill all the parasites. But, newsflash for these people, and I've enlightened some Christians. I don't know if they kept eating or not, but, in the best manner too, when you talk to people about this stuff. But the trichinosis parasite, Trichinella spiralis, I think is the name. The larvae and the eggs, survive even under the most intense heat. You could have an open, so that they're designed. They have a specific layer, or I don't know if I'd say it's a coating, but it's a specific layer outside of the eggs, where even against an open flame, or boiling water, if you put your if you decide to put your rib or something in there, it's not going to kill these larvae. They will survive even open flames. So there's no such thing as, cooking it, I'm not going to get parasites or any of that. No, you will get infected. And it's it's not good. So that's just for I guess a little information for people out there who would argue, because this has been an argue point. I'm sure we've even seen this online. Like when this has come up, people think they can just cook or fry their food in extreme heat, and it's not going to work. Like these larvae will survive and they will hatch inside of you. I mean, it's very kind of gross to talk about, but this is a reality. So I mean, look at God's wisdom here, because you don't see this with other parasites, other than trichinosis or the Trichinella spiralis. You see that with their design of the larvae eggs can survive. So I mean, this is proofs for people too, like how subhanallah. I mean, not to mention too, that the pigs don't have swine don't have sweat glands to release toxins and stuff. And they also eat like anything, though, even, I don't want to get into that, but anyway, verse 146. So, this footnote we also read is also applicable to 146, so we'll, keep that in mind. For those who are Jewish, we prohibited animals with undivided hooves, and the cattle. And of the cattle and the sheep we prohibited the fat, except which is carried on their backs or in the viscera and mixed with bones. That was a retribution for their transgressions, and we were truthful. So look, subhanAllah. So it was the very next verse that is discussing the fat. So we can see the very specific, very detailed, this, how, Surah 41, the detail, elucidated, everything is perfect in here. So, just recapping, God willing, just the end of this footnote. So, verse 146 informs us that such prohibitions are very specific. God prohibits either the meat or the fat, or both, if He so wills. SubhanAllah. So it's very, very easy, to understand. And that was a retribution for their transgressions, and we are truthful. So this is. And we can see this happen in I think it's also the Quran confirms, some of this that's mentioned in the previous scriptures. If they disbelieve you, then say, your Lord possesses infinite mercy, but His retribution is unavoidable for the guilty people. The idol worshippers say, had God willed, we would not practice idolatry, nor would our parents, nor would we prohibit anything. Thus did those before them disbelieve until they incurred our retribution. Say, do you have any proven knowledge that you can show us? You follow nothing but conjecture, you only guess. The most powerful argument. Say God possesses the most powerful argument. If he wills, he can guide all of you. So God is possessor of infinite mercy, but he's also strict in enforcing retribution. This is one of the names, I believe. Strict in enforcing retribution, the Avenger, the most powerful. Maybe also too when we make zikr, I like to uh, you know think about these things too, because it reminds us that we only fear God and we reverence God, and we realize He's the only one who can help us, and that He's doing everything, and not to ever despair in His mercy, but also, beware of retribution that may not be limited to the evildoers among you. So we don't want to be these guilty people, these people that are following innovations, blindly, or even when they're reminded, they take no heed. They're idol worshippers. That's the big one of the huge takeaways. And I mean, there's so much wisdom in the Quran and so much to learn from. And the big one of the big emphasis here is the main is idol worship. Never falling into idol worship. And we can see what the idol worshippers say. As Satan also said, which I think we read, or no, it's coming up in Surah 7, how he's a proven liar, how he blames God. He says, had God willed, or what did he say? He said, since you have willed that I go astray, I will skulk for them on your straight path. I will come to them from before them, from behind them, from their left and from their right. But if you look at the footnote, he's a proven liar, and messenger of the covenant, delves into this deeper too. So it's the same parallel we're seeing here, that the idol worshippers, they blame, they for their own sins and their own fall and their shortcomings, they're blaming God. But they're invited. This wouldn't make any sense, because they would be in violation of their free will, right? We have free will, and it really boils down to either choosing God or choosing Satan, and God will help us, in either direction. We want to choose God. We want to be happy. We want to be in perfect security. I mean, why would anybody choose misery? But I guess that's like a rhetorical or redundant question. But we can see a lot of people do this because they're duped or they're hypnotized by Satan. As we seen earlier, he's our most ardent enemy. So we have to treat him as such. As another verse in the Quran says, we have to treat. How are you going to treat somebody that wants to see you, suffer in the worst retribution forever? You know, um, so and that's another thing that these people do. They follow only conjecture. They only guess. They don't have any true belief or sincere belief about the day of judgment. They don't believe in, how we're all accountable. And even if, they're enlightened in this manner about accountability, I'd say a lot of people hate the fact that, hate the concept, and or not even the concept, but the truth about accountability. Even if it's even if it's not in their favor, but if they were honest or truth, um, or righteous people, they would rather that, even if it's not easy, like in a sense, how many choose to go astray uh, due to their idol worship, due to intercession, due to thinking that someone can get them out of hell, despite how they live their life. Even if they live somewhat okay, and do bad things and maybe do a few good things, but someone, this person, just a human being, died for their sins and stuff, and they prefer that, over the truth of accountability and weights, how we have to do um, our prayers, our refrain from the prohibitions, as we've been discussing, refrain from the unlawful, ungodly prohibitions, right? and advocate righteousness, prohibit evil. All these things we're supposed to do. They rather not do that. They rather some easy way out. And I mean, you know, these people don't belong with God's kingdom. Like the messenger said, God doesn't want the lazy employees, that will cause the company to lose. So these people don't truly value God and don't love God, as don't value God as He should be valued. I think we just read over that verse, but God possesses the most powerful argument. If He wills, He can guide all of you. And also, receiving the guidance is just one thing. We have to apply it. Like it's been uh, the ultimate mercy, so to speak, or a great, uh, the most incredible mercy, great mercy bestowed upon us, that we even get the guidance, but we also have to completely apply it in our life and uphold, really aim to not make any mistakes in this regard, and not think it's, or not be accustomed to think it's okay to sin even in the slightest, because if we constantly remember that we have an atom's weight. I mean, we wouldn't want, if we can do it, if it's in our control, we wouldn't want a single atom's weight to count against us. I mean, of course, we understand that humans, the types of creatures we are, but we have to have this type of mindset. We have to, and if we fall into sin, we have to immediately repent and reform. And repentance is also incites, reformation, meaning, like repentance, if somebody just says, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not," and then they're in the back of their mind or something, they're like secretly, and maybe they're not even aware of it, but they have to dig. This is what it means to examine yourself. They have to dig. Like, am I gonna do this? Like, no way. It's. I mean, they looking at these things that they can cause you to literally lose your hereafter, lose your the eternal gift of returning to God and being with God in paradise, and not just losing that, but also going to the worst retribution. Having this mindset, this is beneficial. To have this, and namely know that God is doing everything. Because the definition, thinking anybody, and this is quoting the messenger, but if you think anybody uh, is doing anything, by definition, this is shirk. I mean, that's very scary. Like not scary, but like it's extremely, extremely alarming. Because like how many times have we do this? This is what it means. Like he said, believers who if you don't believe or know that God is doing everything, you're not a true believer. I mean, this is of paramount importance. And I mean, especially we know this is the summation of all of the things, how it ties into making God our God. Who is your God? Submitting versus objecting. Like remembering that and believing and knowing that God is doing everything and that He's in full control. That's it. It makes those other two, being a submitter, um, like the only choice, and also you're constantly thinking about God, so you have, who is your God covered, like in the sense of making Him God the majority of your day. But yeah, so this is so important, and we have to continue to stress this and remember this. 150 say, bring your witnesses who would testify that God has prohibited this or that. If they testify, do not testify with them, nor shall you follow the opinions of those who reject our revelations, and those who disbelieve in hereafter, and those who stray away from their Lord. So yeah, we don't testify with even if they testify with these prohibitions. We don't testify for these people or with them, obviously, and nor shall you follow the opinions of those who reject the revelation. Lest you I mean, unless you end up going to hell with these people, unless something changes with them. But we don't acquiesce to anybody who disbelieves in the hereafter. Um, Mashallah. So with this, if there's any comments or questions, please feel free. Thank you.
MashaAllah. Thank you, brother.
Mashallah. Mashallah. Is Brother Suleiman or somebody talking? I don't think. Raphael, can
I
you?
can hear you, brother.
Okay.
Brother John, can you hear us?
No, no, I can't. Let me log on from my phone. Okay, 1 second. Hey,
Hey,
Assalamu
Salam
alaikum. I think I
I
can
think
hear
I
you
can hear
now.
you now.
Assalamu alaikum. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
can hear
yeah, I
you,
can hear you,
mashallah.
mashallah.
Okay, mashallah. So yeah, I had a question regarding pigs. So basically, Buddha asked a question about eating pork, and she was saying like, how come people still continue to eat pork, like when they know that scientifically, it's bad for us. Why is it so prevalent in the Western society?
Uh,
Uh,
I've heard
I've
like
heard
from
like from
I think
I think
which I
which
can't
I can't
understand this
understand this
reason that
reason
I'm
that
about to
I'm about
give
to
that they
give that
give,
they
but
give, but
they say
they
that it
say that
tastes
it
good,
tastes
and
good,
to
and
me
to me
it
it
doesn't. I mean,
doesn't.
it
I mean, it
tastes
tastes from
from years
from
ago
years
when I
ago
would
when I would
eaten it
eaten it
before. It's
before.
very
It's very
salty and
salty
like
and
very
like
cheap
cheap
tasting, but
tasting, but
yeah, for some
yeah, for
reason I
some reason
enjoy
I
the
enjoy the
taste. And
taste. And
another,
another,
I don't know,
I don't
another
know, another
reason, like
reason, like I've had
like a
like a
debate with
debate with
one of the
one of
people
the
I used to
people I
work
used to
for. He
work
was a
for. He was a
Christian, and
Christian,
he would
and he would
argue
argue
saying,
saying,
"Oh, you
"Oh,
follow the
you
Old
follow the Old
Testament law,
Testament
or blah
law,
blah
or blah
blah."
blah blah."
And I was like,
And I
"Yeah."
was like,
So
"Yeah."
I said,
So
"You
I
can
said,
either
"You can
follow
either
the whole
follow the whole
Bible or none
Bible
of
or
it. You
none of it.
can't
You
cherry
can't
pick."
cherry
But
pick." But
um,
um,
I think for
I think for
Christians to do it,
Christians
I
to
don't
do
know
it,
if it's a
it's
form
almost
of
a form of
rebellion, like if
rebellion.
they
Like
know
if they
better,
know
or
better, or they're just,
or they
or
think
they
so.
think
So
so.
if they
So if
think
they think
so, what it
so,
is
what
with
it is
them,
with
that
them,
group,
that
I don't know
group, I
about
don't know
like
about like
non-believers,
non-believers,
like
like
quote
quote
unquote
unquote
non-believers, but
non-believers, but
for them they
for
think
them they think
the
the
prohibition
prohibition
it was just
it
an
was
Old
just an Old
Testament thing.
Testament thing.
So like
So
same
like
thing how
same
they
thing
can
how they can
eat pork
eat pork
or
or
do these other
do these
things.
other
They
things.
it was just
It was just
limited
limited
for some reason,
for
which it
some
doesn't
reason,
even
which it
say
doesn't
that
even say
in the
that
Old
in the
Testament.
Old
Like
Testament.
it
Like
said
it said
prohibition.
prohibition.
Um,
Um,
it's part of
is part of the
that law,
that
you
law,
know.
you know.
Um,
Um,
but I think
but I think
for
for
all other
all
reasons
other reasons,
they say it
they
tastes
say it
good, but
tastes
it
good, but
doesn't.
it
It's very
doesn't. It's
nasty
very
tasting.
nasty tasting.
Yeah, there was one hypocrite I used to know, and I was really surprised by it. So he used to say that it tastes so good. He says the only thing he says he misses is because he said it tastes so good.
No, it's very
No, it's very
disgusting. Like
disgusting. Like
it's
it's
salty. Like
salty.
even
Like
like because
even
they don't
like because they
sweat
don't sweat
either.
either.
And
And
it tastes like
it tastes
like an
like an
abomination of like
abomination of like
beef, like if
beef.
that makes
Like if
sense.
that
Like
makes
you
sense.
added a
Like you
bunch of
added a bunch of
beef and then like
beef
let
and
it
then like
sit
let
out
it
or
sit out
something.
or
Or maybe
something.
I'm
Or maybe I'm
butchering an
which
example, but it does
example, but
not
it does
taste
not
good.
taste good.
Like I don't
Like
know,
I don't
Yeah,
know.
but
I
that's
But
agree
neither
that's
with
here
you.
too.
Yeah, it's just a test for people.
Yeah, it
yeah,
just
it just
reminds me, brother.
reminds me, brother.
there was a
There was
truck
a truck
driver who was
driver who
doing.
was
I think
doing.
I
I
told you
think I
about the
told you
example
about the
he wanted me
example
to
he
get,
wanted me to get,
or I told him
or I
I'll
told
buy
him
him
I'll buy him
tamales.
tamales.
Him and this other
Him and this
one,
other
because
one,
they were
were
helping us
helping us
at one of
at
our
one of our
locations,
locations,
and then
then
they had
they had
chicken,
chicken,
but
but
he wanted
he
pork, and
wanted
he
pork, and
insisted
he
on pork,
insisted
and he
on
says,
pork,
"No,
and he
I'm
says,
not
"No,
doing
I'm not
that."
doing
And
that.
like we
And
started
like we started
talking, and
talking, and
he was like,
he
"Oh,
was
what's
like,
the
"Oh,
big
what's
deal?"
the
And I
big
said,
deal?" And I
"Man,
said, "Man,
it's
it's
not
not
good,
good.
it's
It's
not
not
healthy,
healthy,
but
but
also
also
I'm
I'm
it's
not gonna. It's
prohibited in my
prohibited in my
religion."
religion."
And then we
And
started
then we
talking
started
about from
talking
the
about from
Christian
the Christian
aspect of
aspect
view,
of view,
But then he was
But
trying
then
to
he was
come from
trying to
that
come from that
angle, and
angle,
says
and
I was
says I was
explaining to him about
explaining to him about
trichinosis and
trichinosis
stuff,
and
like
stuff,
it's
like it's
mentioned, like the
mentioned, like
messenger
the
talked
messenger
about in the
talked about in the
footnote
footnote
in the
in the
Quran, and
Quran, and
also
also
scientific. And then
scientific.
he
And
was
then he
just,
was just,
I don't know, he
I don't
said
know,
the
he
same
said the
thing.
same
He
thing.
said, "Well,
He
man,
said, "Well, man,
it tastes so
it
good."
tastes
And I
so
was like,
good." And I
"No,
was
it
like, "No,
doesn't."
it
I said,
doesn't." I
"Why?" I
said,
said, "What
"Why?" I
about
said, "What
pollo?"
about pollo?"
Chicken
Chicken
pollo.
pollo
Pollo
is
is
good.
good.
And
And so I
so
ended up, I
I
said,
ended
"I'll
up, I
get
said,
it,
"I'll
but
get it, but
only if it's
only if it's
chicken."
chicken.
He's like,
He's
"Okay,
like,
that's
"Okay,
fine." I
that's
was like,
fine." I was
"Okay."
like, "Okay."
Yeah, so
Yeah.
yeah,
So yeah,
I
it was.
just
I just
remember like
remember
he
like
also
he
mentioned
also
the
mentioned the
taste
taste
too.
too.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people who realize that they can get the tapeworm in their brain, like they say, well, that's because it's not cooked well, and if you cook it well, then they think that it's fine. But the thing is, like, even if they've found out that even if you cook it well, there's parasites that can still survive. There's eggs that can still hatch. You know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah,
exactly.
like these
Yeah, like
people
these
don't
people
even
don't
care.
even
Like
care.
I
Like
think
I think
I don't know.
I
Yeah,
don't
I
know.
don't
Yeah,
know
I don't know
exactly why
exactly
they.
why they.
But there's
But
people.
there's
I think
people. I
it's
think it's
ego too.
ego too.
Because I've
Because
seen
I've seen
comments. Like
comments.
I've seen
Like
these
I've seen
videos
these
on
videos on
YouTube
YouTube
about like
about
kind of like
kind
what
of
you're
like what
talking
you're
about.
talking about.
And then
And
you
then
have a
you
lot of
have a
people
lot of
come
people
in and
come
it's like,
in and it's
oh,
like,
like you
oh,
see, I
like you
guess you
see, I
see
guess you see
traditional
traditional
Muslims. It's like, oh,
Muslims.
this
It's
is
like, oh,
why
this
it's
is why it's
prohibited,
prohibited,
mashallah,
mashallah,
whatever.
whatever.
These
These
traditional
traditional
Muslims say
Muslims
that. But
say that.
then you
But
see, I
then
see, I've
I've
seen, this
seen,
was like several
this was like
months ago.
several
I've seen
months
a
ago.
lot
I've
of
seen a
people
lot of
that
people that
comment like,
comment
oh,
like,
like if
oh,
I
like if I
boil it, it's
boil
still
it,
gonna be
it's still
good.
gonna be
Yum,
good.
yum,
Yum, yum.
Like they're making
Like they're making
comments like when
comments
the
like
video
when the
was
video
telling them like
telling
no,
them
no,
like
like
no,
you
no,
can't.
like
And
you
then
can't.
they
And
like
they
insist,
like
well, like there's
insist, well,
no
like
way
there's
even if
no
I
way
put it
even
on an
if I put
open
it on an
flame
open
on the
flame
grill.
on the
Yeah.
grill.
And
And
I think it's
I
just
think
like
it's like
refusing to
refusing to
want to believe that
believe
like
that
yeah,
like
this
yeah,
stuff
this stuff
does not
does
die
not
like if
die
you
like
cook
if
it.
you cook it. Uh,
Yeah, the thing is, like, when God has made all these, more premium meats, all lamb and the beef and all these, like chicken and fish and all these things, like, why do you still want to eat the one thing that can really make you very sick and can even kill you? And
Mashallah.
it's so unhealthy for you, right?
Yeah, that's a really
that's a
good
really
point.
good
So you
That
don't
point.
have
That
to struggle so much with all this stuff. Just follow God and follow the Quran, follow the Bible. I mean, it's there, right? Obviously, I think people who are really, really health conscious, like, normally stay away from eating pork, right? I mean,
yeah, they do.
yeah, they
Like
do like
you're
yeah,
correct.
you're
Yeah, like
correct. Yeah,
even
like
like some
even
of
like
these
some of these
bodybuilders and
bodybuilders
stuff,
and stuff,
mm-hmm.
they
they
don't
don't
eat pork.
eat
And then
pork. And then
also
also
like you
like
see
you
this.
see this
They talk
they
about
talk
pork
about
and
pork and
yeah, the health
yeah, the
conscious
health
people.
conscious people.
Also,
Also,
too, I've
too,
seen
I've seen
like they'll
like
share
they'll share
videos and
videos
stuff
and
like
stuff
how
like how
what they
what
feed
they
these
feed
pigs.
these
So there was
pigs.
this
So there was this
video I saw
video I saw
recently. I don't know
recently.
if
I
I
don't know if
shared
I
it with
shared
y'all,
it with
but
y'all, but
it's this
it's this
facility, like
facility,
this
like this
warehouse, and they have
warehouse,
these
and they have these
conveyor belts,
conveyor
and it's
belts, and
pure
it's pure
trash. Like
trash.
so,
Like so,
it's
it's
trash,
trash,
like
like
landfill type
landfill type
trash in this
trash in this
facility,
facility.
and
And
they
they
grind it up
grind it
into
up
this
into
like
this like
pellet type
pellet
of
type
food.
of food.
Kind of like
Kind of like
similar to
similar to
like
like
the
the
texture you
texture
see,
you
like
see,
how
Yeah,
you
like
feed
how you
can't
guinea.
we
feed
did.
guinea.
Yeah, and it's
Yeah,
like
and
this
it's
is
like
what
this is
y'all are
what y'all
eating.
are
Like they're
eating. Like
literally
they're
feeding
literally
them
feeding them
trash, like
trash, like
plastic, like
plastic,
all
like
kind
all
of
kind
just
of just
not just
not just
organics, but
organics,
like
but like
decompost, but
decompost,
like
but like
they'll eat
they'll eat
anything. And
anything. And
I mean, there's a
I mean,
lot of
there's a
people
lot
in
of
the
people in the
comments that
comments that
some
some
people said,
people
"Oh, I'm
said,
never
"Oh,
eating
I'll never
pork
eat pork
again,"
again," but then other people are like,
still,
just still,
I guess,
I guess,
I don't know.
I don't know.
But
But
yeah,
yeah,
mashallah, I like the
mashallah, I like
point
the
you brought
point you brought
because
because
I think it's
I think
also
it's also
like being
like being
unappreciative.
unappreciative.
Like
Like
given things
giving
like
things like
lamb and
lamb
like
and like
all these
all
other
these
nice
other nice
meats,
meats,
and you're gonna
and
go
you're gonna
choose
go choose
this
this
unhealthy meat
unhealthy
to.
meat too.
Go into, just it's just not good for your own happiness. Um, so we have, we have to hold ourselves accountable. Because God is going to hold us accountable on the day of judgment.
Mashallah,
Mashallah, could you
I
I
got some of
got
the
some of the
last
last
parts, but could
parts,
you
but could you
restart, brother? I
restart,
think
brother? I think
you're the
you're the
first
first part of your
Yeah, I was
you
saying,
know.
I was saying, thank you for sharing the points you mentioned about God's attributes. That we remember God with His attributes, including the fact that God is most strict in enforcing retribution. And He's the avenger. You know, so people remember that we should not take God's mercy and His forgiveness for granted. While it's true that God is forgiver, most merciful, but we should not abuse that. People, as the messenger of the covenant said, people actually abuse that and think they can get away with everything. But we have to know that it's for our own good. The more we follow God's laws, the better it's going to be for us in the hereafter. If we do anything wrong, we will be held accountable for it. One set of rules for you and another set of rules for someone else. He's the most just, and it's the same for everybody. And so, if you're doing some kind of sins, God holds everybody accountable by the same standard, right? So we have to be uh, 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 extremely introspective and critical of ourselves to make sure that, how we're conducting ourselves in our day-to-day life, we're following God's laws and not taking His forgiveness for granted, and just being complacent and stuff in our submission.
Mashallah.
MashaAllah.
MashaAllah.
And also, mashallah, I liked what you said about innovations and attributing lies to God and making false prohibitions. People who do that, God reminds us over and over again that these are the most evil people on earth. People take it for granted when they, sorry, I have to.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Suleiman. We'll be
Suleiman. We'll
right
be
back.
right back.
Is there any
Is there
other
any other
about
about
what he was
what he
talking
was
about?
talking
Are there
about? Are
any
there any
additional
additional
comments or
comments or
thoughts?
thoughts?
Brother
Brother
Raphael?
Raphael?
Yeah, mashallah. Yeah, mashallah, brother. Um, God really tells us in these verses, like, um, um, it shows us like His mercy, and how we must be appreciative, and it shows you like what's the other option. It's being unappreciative, and it has these verses show you like um God's mercy and His provisions to you and all these good things, and these verses also like they also tell you like what people do instead of being appreciative of these blessings and these provisions and these good things, they um like people would rather just be miserable and commit idol worship and be unappreciative of these things, and I mean this is how some people really are, and we see this in the verses, and we also see this like um with people, like I remember like when I was a kid, when I was like very young, like maybe like 10, 9, or something like that. There was a guy that I used to be around with. This guy used to he was an idol worship, like more like deep, like idol worshiper, like more deep, like more like not like, I mean it's all bad, but he was more in that like those very like not the known idols, like Jesus and stuff like that, like more like, if you want to call it, like dark, or I'm not sure. It's the same thing, but it's just not these known idols and stuff. And he used to say this, you know, I remember this. He used to say he used to say like, oh, like I do this, but it's first God, you know. And I used to I used to think when back then, you know, at the age I used to be like, it was so confusing, you know. I was like what is like what's going on, you know, like I never understood it, you know. And like if you think about it, like I'm pretty sure he had no knowledge of Quran. Who knows, you know, but my guess would be that he didn't, you know. But here we see in Quran certain situations, you know. And um and also this man was very miserable, you know. He was very like so much bad things were happening to him, you know. But you see like um like the tendency of people committing idol worship, you know. Like this guy was like, supposedly he said he believed in God, but he really didn't believe in God, you know. If you would see him, you would see that he was a hardcore satanic person, you know. But he would still say, oh, he believes in God, you know. And you know, he was unappreciative, you know. Like, but like God says, the idols, they confuse the religion, you know. Um and um and harm them, you know.
Yeah, mashallah. I think too, you know, it also displays like um, a bigger proof against these people that they're unappreciative for the Quran in its entirety. Because if they were, you know, they wouldn't deviate or go to other sources, or you know, they're also unappreciative for God if they're you know, inventing lies about God. Um, you know, but yeah, as Brother Suleiman, I think, was discussing in this comment before, I think you might be having, you should be returning soon. Um, but yeah, I mean, these are the worst of the worst people. And something seemingly, you know, we as submitters know it's not small, but, you know, to these disbelievers, idol worshippers, hypocrites, that's seemingly small, like these innovation or prohibitions, that they don't take it like as their life depends on it, meaning like the eternal life, right? Not, well, I mean, also, you know, their physical, their happiness in this world, but like their real life depends on it. I mean, yeah, I mean, this is also having respect and reverence for the Word of God and everything He tells us, and you know, as you were saying, brother Raphael, being appreciative for the guidance. And thank God for the clarity. You know, we know what to do, what not to do, and the right and the wrong are clearly distinguished. You know, the good and the bad. There's a clear distinction here, so we can follow it with resting assured that, you know, what we have is from God, and we don't, you know, have to uh, be wondering about this or that. Like a lot of these people are who invent such lies or innovations. You know, they're engaging in a lot of vain talk, you know, vain talk that's just not attributing to anything except them going astray. You know, they're arguing over uh, these pointless points or these futile points when the truth is very clear and made easy for them. I mean, you know, you see like in traditional Islam, I mean, even Christianity to an extent, like how difficult it is even just to follow like some of these things. Like I remember hearing about this one hadith, you know, this innovation that you're not supposed to spit. Like if you have to spit for some reason, you can't spit on your left side. You know, you have to spit on your right side because that's the side that Satan spits on. You know, or something like you shouldn't sleep on your left side for so long or something. I mean, it's and people follow this, or they at least try to, and it makes it very difficult. It's like Satan trying to complicate things for these people. You know.
Yeah, mashallah, brother. Yeah, and the messenger talks about this too, like when he's the bulletin news on the YouTube video,
Hmm.
where he's talking about these things. How every single these like um forces, they all believe in God. But it's like he's talking about like these certain countries, and stuff like that. And he was saying like how all these certain people, they all believe in God, like you were just saying right now. But the thing is, like, what causes them confusion and what makes them argue against each other is their idols. It's the human factor. Um, and it's because they're not sincere. Because if they were sincere, they will be united um, in submission, to God alone. But it's the idols that cause separation, that cause these bad things to happen. But when you submit to God alone, you'll be like truly submit to God alone. You'll be surrounded by such people. By people um, who are sincere. But you see these things, you see like the difference between someone who is submitted to God alone and someone who is not, you know and these groups, they all fight against each other and they all have an idol. you know
Hmm.
all of them do.
Yeah, human factor.
mm.
Yeah, and it's interesting too to see like these people, the idol worshippers, blame God for their innovations. They say if God will, we wouldn't have practiced idolatry, nor would we prohibit anything.
Mashallah, brother. I was actually like gonna comment on that, but I had forgot. Just you just remembered. I just remembered. But yeah, it was, mashallah. I like how you um make like compare them to Satan, because that's exactly what Satan says. If that's like they like that's exactly how he thought. And like but mashallah, this is why everything's in Quran. And these things, we learn from these things, and we know like to stay far away from that type of mentality. And stay away from those type of people.
Yeah,
It's the
we can.
same thing, yeah. It's the same thing. I'm sorry, but it's the same thing. It's just like um, like like Satan blamed God for his strain and his transgression and his wickedness, and these people are doing the same thing, right?
Hmm.
Mm.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're free creatures, and like that, the free will that we have to worship God and obey and submit. Affirm submission to God alone. We can choose that, or we can choose to listen to Satan's point of view and obey these idols and what they advocate. Which they're all going to advocate innovations and all of that. Um,
So
yeah, it's really cool too. It's awesome that we see the detail, how detailed it is. about God. Very specific how God prohibits either the meat or the fat or both if he so wills. So this, um, I mean, just looking at it from like the most plain point of view, you could clearly see that it's just the meat of pigs. Not the fat like they try to innovate. And I think I guess they're not being more righteous. They're actually being more devilish and rebellious by inventing this because it's kind of like if you have uh, someone, your boss tells you to go get 3 oranges from the store, like he gives you a set amount of money, or let's say he gives you a good amount of money and he tells you give me 3 oranges, and you come back with 5 oranges. I mean that's clear like disobedience, and that's you're not being more. He's like, I didn't tell you to give me 5 oranges. I told you to buy me 3. Why did you buy me 5? Like they're basically in the same sense. They're it's worse than that, but that's just an example of the disobedience that uh, humans have.
Yeah, brother, mashallah, it's true. Even if their mentality is like, they're doing it like for some reason they think um that they could do better or whatever. That's actually like you see it. Like everything becomes like um worse. Because it's like it doesn't matter like what you think or what like that's all ego. Because um you are just a tiny creature. And like you, there's no way like you can do anything that um will like people that do hadiths and stuff like that, they're trying to like say like, oh, this is better, than just following Quran alone. And or like other examples, but you see that they're so confused, um and their ego like also like like their ego blinds them, to think that um this is right, like this is good, the bad is good and the good is bad, you know and
Yeah.
yeah, and but mashallah, this is why we gotta, like you were talking about being appreciative, really like and you talked about just Quran, like just like like Quran, like being appreciative of what we have. Like you can never be more appreciative than having the Quran, like like everything's there. And um it's truly like a huge blessing, because without Quran we have no happiness, it's just darkness, and like this is why like these things that we see around us, what people have done, we must be appreciative, that God protected us from such paths, um, because it's all God's mercy, because if it wasn't for God, we we know, like the angel suggested, like throw him on in hell, it was God who gave who his it was God's mercy who gave us this opportunity, this last chance, you know and imagine like um you have like this is why like we really have to push that being appreciative. And it's not like we're pushing it and it's like, oh, we're not appreciative, but it's remembrance, like keep reminding yourself, find other ways to be appreciative, um like never forget these things,
Yeah,
Mashallah.
mashallah.
wonder if Brother Suleiman is traveling. I know he's traveling, but maybe he.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to assume, brother, but when he was like, it seemed like it was very urgent, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Salam alaikum, brother Jeffrey.
Salam alaikum, brother. My brother Suleiman is back.
Yay. Welcome, brother.
Oh, salam alaikum. Welcome back. Oh, yeah, mashallah. I think you were talking about, um, you were making, you had a comment, before you had left.
So, are there any comments or questions from anyone about the verses?
Maybe Brother
Maybe Brother
Raphael,
Raphael, we're kind of, we've been talking
about some of
about
the,
some of the
verses,
verses,
like the
like the
one
one
148,
148,
where
where
how the idol
how the idol
worshippers
worshippers
blame
blame
God
God,
for their
for their
idolatry, and
idolatry,
their
and their
prohibiting
prohibiting
of
of
things
things,
that
that
God
God
did not
did not
prohibit.
prohibit.
And,
And,
Right.
it's the
it's the
same
same like
thing that
thing that
Satan
Satan
says,
says,
like how it
like how it
discusses in the
discusses in the
footnote, how
footnote, how
he
he
blames
blames
God
God
for,
for,
and
and
it
it
said in the
said in the
footnote, Satan
footnote,
is a
Satan is a
proven
proven
liar, and so
liar,
are
and
his
so are his
constituents.
constituents.
So
So
it's almost
it's
like
almost like it's a,
I guess
I
it's
guess
kind of
it's
like a
kind of like
cop
a
out
cop out
for these
for these
people, instead
people,
of
instead
like
of
getting
like
rid of their
getting rid of their
idolatry, or
idolatry, or
taking heed.
taking heed.
They'd be like,
They'd be
oh,
like, oh,
like God
like
wills
God
for me
wills
to,
for me to,
didn't you even?
didn't
I
you
think
even?
you
I
even
think you
ran into
ran
this.
into
Didn't
this.
you
Didn't
say
you
that
say that
you met
you met
somebody
somebody
before that said
before that
that,
said
or
that,
a,
or
a submitter or
submitter or
something?
something?
Yeah, submitters, because
That's
That's
crazy.
like
crazy.
when the topic came about circumcision, so we understand that another source besides Quran is idol worship, and so when you tell these people that it's idol worship and that it's an innovation, and they will tell you, well, if it was wrong, like wouldn't God allow the messenger to say something about it? Like, why didn't the messenger say anything about it? Like, we have been doing it, you know. God is like, why are we still doing it? If God wanted us to not do it, like we would not be doing it. Like blaming God and blaming the messenger for their idol worship. I mean, the messenger and God has clearly said you're gonna follow the only source as your
Mhm.
source of law and guidance is the Quran. So
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
blame God and don't blame the messenger for your idol worship. In
Mashallah.
other words.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
do,
they
and
do,
that's
and that's
funny.
funny.
Like
Like
like he says,
So,
why didn't the man? And he does talk about, like he
like
says,
he says,
Quran
Quran
alone,
alone,
follow the
follow the
Quran
Quran
alone. If you go
alone.
to
If you
any
go
other
to any other
source,
source,
it
it
reflects
reflects
disbelief.
disbelief.
And
And
it's
it's
like the
just like the
heifer,
heifer,
Surah
Surah
2,
2,
how these
how these
people
people
want, like,
want, like,
demand, like,
demand, like,
say it so
say it so
specifically, just like
specifically,
how
just
they
like
even
how
call
they even
upon
call upon
miracles.
miracles.
Like, no, we
Like,
have to
no, we
see,
have to
like, a
see,
book
like, a book
that comes from
that
the
comes from the
sky, and it has
sky
to
and it has
come
to
from this
come from this
direction. And,
direction. And,
it's like,
like,
I mean,
I
just
mean,
like how
just
they
like how they
did,
did,
but,
but,
yeah,
yeah,
I've
also,
always
I've
looked at
always
it.
looked at it.
I mean, this is
I mean,
just me, but I've always looked at it like a test for these people. Like, in the same way,
yeah,
I've
also,
always
I've
looked at
always
it.
looked at it.
I mean, this is
I mean,
just me, but I've always looked at it like a test for these people. Like, in the same way, how the messengership, uh, had a lot of people that dropped out and were exposed. I think it's the same or similar thing with these people. Like, it's not.
not.
I mean,
I mean,
it's what
it's
I'm
what
saying.
I'm
I guess
saying. I
it's
guess
like
it's like
it's clear
it's
cut
clear
for
cut
us.
for
Like,
us. Like,
because I mean, it
because I
should
mean,
be
it should
clear.
be
It's so
clear, it's so
clear for
clear for
everybody. But
everybody. But
it's
it's
enough. It's
enough.
like
It's like
they're given
they're
enough
given
rope to
enough
hang
rope to hang
themselves. Like,
themselves.
so if
Like,
their
so if their
hearts
hearts
still
still
are
are
seeking other
seeking other
sources
sources
besides
besides
Quran, or
Quran, or
they have these
they have these
innovation
innovation
tendencies,
tendencies, they're
they're gonna,
gonna,
like
like,
in the
in the
beginning of
beginning of
Surah
Surah
6,
6,
how it
how
says
it
we
says we
allow these
allow
people
these
to
people to
inspire
inspire
fancy
fancy
words to,
words to,
um,
um,
uh,
uh,
you know,
you know,
I think
I
it
think
maybe
it
made
maybe
astray
made
or
astray or
something, but
something.
and it
But
says
and it says
we thus
we
allow
thus allow
this,
this,
if we
if
will,
we
we
will, we
wouldn't
wouldn't
have allowed
have
it, but we
allowed it, but we
thus
thus
expose the
expose
people's
the
true
people's true
convictions. So
convictions. So their
I think
conviction, I
just
think,
really
just
had to
really had to
be
be
like God
like
is
God
running
is running
everything, and
everything, and
always
always
look at it as
look at
like
it as
for
like for
a test
a
for these
test for
people
these
to
people to
see
see
who
who
deserves,
deserves,
to go to
to go to
heaven and who
heaven and who
deserves to
deserves
go to
to go
hell,
to hell,
like the
like
lowest
the
bit of
lowest bit
hell,
of
like
hell,
these
like these
dropouts that
dropouts
are,
that are,
you know.
you know.
Because
Because
if it was
if it
so
was so
plainly
plainly
said, yeah, I
said,
mean,
yeah, I mean, it
it would be a
would be a
test in a
test.
sense, like, but
Yeah. And God says, He will even encourage them. Those who wish to go astray, God will even encourage them to go on
mashallah,
that path.
Yeah,
mashallah, that's
mashallah, that's
true.
true.
Brother
Brother
Raphael, did you
Raphael,
have
did you have
something? I
something?
think
I think
I saw
I
your.
saw your.
no, brother, I was just thinking, like, about, like, but I was just like, it's just, I was just like, I would just say it then, but it's just like, I was thinking, it's just so clear, like about circumcision, like how it's not, um, part of religion, and I was gonna say something, but I was just like, it's just so clear, like that it's not part, and it's like, I didn't want to confuse myself because I was like, why would anyone even like maybe maybe um maybe, but I think what helps a lot is when somebody like a submitter, like what helped me a lot is was Brother Suleiman's videos, so maybe like if you didn't like, maybe that could be like maybe because there you see everyone doing it, and like, but God makes everything so easy, but if you have like fellow submitters, fellow brothers and sisters that are telling you like specifically, like, and helping you, and showing you these like things and this information and information for so many things, and you still choose like to like just disregard everything, it's just like it makes no sense at all, um I was, and also like maybe like they're not taking Satan as an ardent enemy, they're not taking them as an enemy, because how can they not see that this is from Satan, because he's running out of ideas, and this is like I see it like his last blow, to put the submitters, in the same boat that the Christians are in and Mohammedans are in, you know, and like You know, these are like, instead of finding someone who is um like trying to help you, and um everything that you're like, and nothing's bad, you know, what the person is saying, like the natural thing as a sincere believer is to join them, you know, and um not join them, not like just because it's the truth, you know, just because that's like the main thing, you know, it's just the truth, like plain and simple, it's the truth, you know. And like any sincere believer will support that truth, you know what I'm saying, like that's like really what it comes down to it. But you could see like all the like so much confusion in this subject, you know, and you could see that is from Satan, of course, you know. But mashallah, thank God that God gives us knowledge, and to see what's the truth, you know, and what's the difference in the wrong path and the right one. Mashallah. Also, you know, like um um Brother Suleiman has we've talked about this too, like how people will say they will make these things like, oh, your hair or teeth or all these things, and they will try to like use this as an argument. But like, this is another thing, you know, like the plain picture is that circumcision, I think you have talked about this recently too, Brother John, and or Brother Suleiman, one of you two. But the thing is that this has always been a religion thing. You know, these are lies attributed to the prophet, a lie attributed to the prophet Abraham, just like the hadiths, just like the Trinity. You know, it's the same thing. And this is where circumcision came from. You know.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if they had any like or used their common sense, they would. I mean, it kind of instinctively not want to go anywhere near any of these biblical hadiths or Islamic traditional Islam hadiths. And circumcision is part of that both. I mean, it's even mentioned, I think, in hadith, and then it's also mentioned in the Bible as the false covenant, which we know wasn't a covenant. And I mean, it's with so many other distortions. I mean, they should like even someone brand new or didn't know about submission would like naturally just look at it and be like, okay, if you were going to accept the truth here, you know, you wouldn't revert, and you know, you'd be far more averse to accept these traditional customs and innovations. Huh? Oh. Yeah, you'd be a lot more averse to accepting these innovations. Uh, like they'll more readily accept something from the past and these corrupted religions than they would the Quran alone in its entirety. You know.
Mashallah, brother. Yeah, like we've talked about this before. They're going backwards, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Hmm.
And it's always been for those that claim it's a health thing. It's never that no argument is nullified on 2 points. The first point being it never was health; it was always religious. Like Christian's always been a religious thing among the Jews and Christians. There's nothing to do with health. Uh, you know, that came as one of Satan's traps later, and then that's also nullified as we see at Harvard. Um, I don't know if he was a Harvard professor, but he was a Harvard student, very knowledgeable, and he blew the lid wide open about the Black market I mean, it's disturbing, and then the amount of pain and deadly consequences. And if they're not deadly, they're serious injury. If they're not a fatality, that come from these things, and the amount of damage, and how unhealthy it is. So both points, that point has been nullified on both planes.
Mashallah, brother, right?
Like they try to put out the God's light, and the truth, but it's not gonna work. It's, but I mean, these mashallah, we have freedom, free will, freedom of choice. So, I mean, everybody's free to choose these innovations, or to go astray, or choose to you know follow the right path. I mean, the path that God tells us we have to follow, um, for our happiness and for our success in the hereafter, and in this world too. But it's also applicable about how these idols inflict great pain. I mean, the amount of pain that is inflicted on their children too. Uh, you know, it's also a violation of their free will. It's preemptively. Um, not to get into that. I mean, we know about that already, but it's the verse is applicable to about the pain they inflict, their idols inflict upon them. Are there any other comments or questions from anybody, or any off topic?
I'm good, brother.
Okay, mashallah. Um, well, thank you all for joining, and our next Quran study will be next Tuesday at 9:30 a.m. Pacific time. God bless you all. Salam alaikum.
God bless you all. Assalamu alaikum.
Oh, I think, excuse me, it's at 2 p.m. Pacific time. So, yeah, 2 p.m. Salam alaikum, Brother Jaffer.
Assalamu alaikum, brother.
Salam alaikum.